Hello, my name is Katie and welcome to my channel, Duck Potatoes World. This is Weaving with Bee. Beatrix is my handmade 2-shaft floor loom that I have been working on weaving a plain weave scarf, and I have had you guys along for the entire journey. I apologize for the delay since the last video. I have been so busy. Teenagers keep you busy. And I just haven't been able to get up here. I haven't had a lot of free time to get up here and work on it, but I have a little bit of time tonight. And so the plan is to accomplish and finish dressing my loom. Poor Beatrice has been walking around only half dressed. Well, not walking, she doesn't move, but sitting around only half dressed for quite a while now. So hopefully we can get her lashed onto the front beam, and then I will have a fully dressed loom and we'll be ready to start weaving with the next installment of this series. I do have a couple of things I want to show off. So we've talked about this before, but this is the book I've been using, Learning to Weave by Deborah Chandler. There's an older version of this same book. It's the same title, but it's by Deborah Redding. I have both copies. Both are great. But I also bought a new book, and I'm going to show that one off too. This is called The Hand Weaver's Pattern Directory by Ann Dixon, and I love this book. Now, my personal 2-shaft floor loom is kind of limited because it only has 2 shafts. So I can play with color, but I don't have an easy way to do a lot of patterns. But I have access to a 4-shaft loom at the Mineola League of the Arts, and I have a project on that loom, and I have been getting some of my ideas for patterns out of this book, and I really like it. So I bought this off of eBay. It has some basic weaving instructions at the very beginning. Just basic, similar to the stuff that's in this book, although I think this book is a little bit better for learning. Basic information about yarn, and then it has just tons of patterns, tie-up patterns, drafts for all kinds of different things. I think up to 8 shafts, just all kinds, all different ideas. So really a fun book. I do believe it is out of print, but I was able to find this spiral bound copy on eBay for about $30, so it wasn't too bad. But I'm excited about this acquisition, and I thought I would show it off here on Weaving with Bee. So once I get the loom tied onto the front beam, then I will need to wind my weft yarn onto a stick shuttle. I have longer stick shuttles. They're currently in Mineola holding yarn for my loom. That is the 4-shaft loom I've got a towel project on. So if I don't finish that before I'm ready to weave, I can put it on this shorter stick shuttle, but I'm actually hoping I'll have one of my longer stick shuttles free when I get ready to do actual weaving. But that's there. And then I also have with me, another shorter stick shuttle with a nice, sturdy, smooth yarn. And this is what I'm going to use to tie onto the front beam, and a pair of scissors. Let's get busy. All right, so apparently I chose to live dangerously. I really should have tied all these off into bundles and not left them loose like this last time I was working on Beatrix. But fortunately, nothing seems to be fallen off or out of the reed. But I don't recommend you leave it like this. Now I'm going to cut off these floating selvages. They're way too long. I don't need that much. And what we're going to do is we're going to tie these into bundles. Now usually you want to tie them into about a 1-inch bundle. So I'm just going to tie them in like sets of 4. And I'll need to cut my loops here so that my edges are open. So I'm going to cut those loose, and I think I'm going to tie my first bundle in 5, because if I recall correctly, I think because of my floating selvages, I have extra, or I could just look real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't remember exactly. It's been so long since I worked on her. I can't remember how many ends I have, so I'm just checking to see if I can make bundles of 4. So I think bundles of 4 is what I did last time I did this, because I've made this exact project with different color once already. It's been a while and I've slept since then. Since I don't have a ton of warp ends, just counting isn't that big a deal. If I really had a lot, I would go hunt down my notes and read what I wrote. But this isn't taking that long. 4, 4. Yep. So I'll have 2 sets of 5 on each end, and then everything else will be a bundle of 4. So I just want to tie a knot, like an overhand knot. Make sure all the ends are in it. And there's the first one. And then ideally, I'm going to try to line up all my knots so that they're kind of even. That's a little bit shorter than I want it to be. I like to try to get the knot as far down as I can. But it's not, I've never been super accurate with this, so it won't be perfect. So I'll make it as consistent as I can, about 1 inch below my edge there. That's my goal. Oh, that didn't need to be cut. It was already cut. If you have a knot, you'll have to cut that out or untie it because it won't be helpful. There we go. So there are my ends. I'm aiming for my knot to be about there. That's a really long end. Oops, I missed an end. See, I didn't do a good job of making them all the same length, so I have to be careful. And see, that's way too short, so I just need to, before I pull it tight, I want to pull this down a lot closer to where that one is down there. There, and that's my goal is to bring my knots all the way down so they're all about the same place. Tie them into little bunches of 4. And make sure you don't get them crisscrossed. That's not good. All right, here's my last bundle. It will also be of 5, just like my first bundle was. Yeah, and just so you know, you should never leave your loom like I did with these ends not tied off. That was not very smart of me. If something had happened, these could have all gotten unslayed, and then it would have been a big pain in my rear to have redone. So do as I say, apparently, and not as I do. But fortunately for me, no bad happened. So we're fine. It's all good. But that wasn't the best choice I've ever made. All right, so there's my little bundles. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lash these onto my front beam bar. And one of the things you want to make sure of is that this is going the right direction. This would be wrong. I need it to be coming up this direction, so the weaving fabric will roll over the front beam as I advance it. And so we're going to actually what do I need to do here? I need to advance. Actually, what I need to do is, because you can see here how close this is over this is too close. So I need to back up my warp a little bit so I have room to work. So got my break off here, and I'm just going to roll these. Now we'll test it again. That's better. Do I have any that are going to be just way too close? I don't think so. That one's kind of pushing it. I may back it up just a little bit more. They stretch a lot. And I can actually tighten this up a little bit as well if I need to. Set that break up again. There we go. Well, now I might have it the other way. That's probably good. We'll try that. So I'm going to use this really thick, heavy-duty cord to lash on because I don't want it to break. And there's going to be a lot of tension and stress on this cord. And I have not figured out a good measure for how much I need. Right now I have it wound on this shuttle, but I'm actually going to wind it up into a ball, just a little handmade ball, just because I think it's a little easier to work with. And hopefully I have more than enough. But I always wind up using more of this yarn to tie onto my front beam than I think I'm going to every single time. So it takes a little bit. And the trick here is going to be even tension. And it is going to be a bit of a trick. There's a lot of fiddling and trial and error and whatnot involved in this. For me, there might be a better way to do it, but I don't know it if there is. This is just the way I know to do it. I have to start by tying this waste yarn onto my beam. I don't use any special knot. I just tie a tight knot about where I want it to start. And then I do try to be consistent with how I enter the bundles. So I'm going to enter them from the bottom in between the threads. And then I have to be consistent with where I go on my beam. And I'm going to go over and under. And so then I'm going to get my next bundle, separate it by 2, and I'm going to go under and over for the yarn, and then over and under for the bar. And then I just will keep tightening this as I go It won't stay tight until the end, but I'll just kind of take up slack with each one that I do. So I don't have any pressure on this side of my bar yet. So this will just keep going. And then when I get here, I might want to back this out just a little because they're not perfectly even, and I want the tension to be even in the end, so I need to have enough room to pull things as far as I need to pull them. So let's do... There we go. I'm worried about this blue one running out of... Once I get everything threaded, I'll go through and really work that tension a little bit better. But I want to pay some attention to it as I go. I don't think it really matters where the ends are going. So I can tell this is super loose right here. And what I'm wanting to be even is the tension in here. And it is just sort of by the feel of my hand, I'm deciding how tight or loose. I want them all to feel about the same. So it's a very subjective It's just, do they all feel about the same amount of tight on there? Oop, and see, so I am this one is not gonna have the right amount of tension, so I'm a little too close. So I'll have to loosen everything up so I can back my front beam up a little bit. And I just find it's just a lot of trial and error. I just keep moving things until it feels right. goal is to make it as even as you can. Whoops. And I lost my ball. And this one's still too close to the bar. So let's pull that a little bit further. And now I have to go chase my ball. There we go. Not a very exciting part of the process, but a necessary one. This is probably, honestly, my least favorite part. I always feel like I am having the most trouble here. You don't want it too tight either. That's pretty tight. That's a little too tight. So I'm having to loosen. Still kind of tight. A little loose. Okay, that's better. Sometimes it helps if I close my eyes and feel the tension. I don't know what it is about taking out that extra sensory input that helps me focus on the feel of it, but I find that helps a lot. The other option, if I find that there's a knot that's just way too close to the bars, I can always tie another knot a little higher up if I need to. I try not to do that though, because I am going to use these ends to make fringe when all is said and done. So I don't want them to be too big of a mess. Doing good. Almost done with this part. This is going to be one of the shorter videos because I'm not going to actually start weaving tonight. I don't have time. But I wanted to get the loom, finish getting the loom dressed. I've been trying to put out these videos on the 15th of the month. I obviously missed that in February because we had the Read and Crochet Along, which is up, and I hope you guys are participating in that as well. But since that came out on the 20th of February, I'm going to save this video for March, I think. So I'm expecting this to come out the 15th of March. If I get it edited sooner than that, I might let it come out sooner. I don't have a hard and fast rule about when I'm releasing these videos, but I'll tell you today is I think the 20th or the 19th of February. I actually don't know what the day is off the top of my head, apparently. I'd have to look at my phone, which is recording this video, so I can't right now. All right, a little loose in here. Find the loose ones, and then you have to tighten them up. This is one of the reasons I do it as I go, because if I waited and tried to tighten this all up at the end, it's a lot of tugging all the way down the line. So I try to kind of keep it as even as I can as I go. This one right here is still loose. And it's funny how you can feel which bundles are too loose. And of course, the closer I am to where I'm working, the looser it's likely to be. That one's a little loose. There we go, much more even. Tightness is not really such a concern as evenness, because I'm going to loosen this up. I'm not going to weave with it quite that tight. But right now, I'm just mostly concerned about getting it even. Good. Almost done with dressing the loom. All right, so I have all of my bundles. I'm going to go through and check the tension. Remember, I'm making sure that all of these feel evenly taut. And if I have spaces where it feels lax, I want to tighten it up. I still have some. This whole section here still feels really loose compared to everything else. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. That feels pretty good to me. I lied. I'm going to tighten this whole end again. There's a lot of slack in there. I could sit here forever and tweak this. I really could. I never feel very satisfied with the evenness of my tension. So I have to remind myself that, you know, perfection is not the expectation here. Good enough is good enough. Because there's none of us going to be perfect and nothing this side of glory. So sometimes I have to remind myself of that. But since I've gone and gotten out all this slack, I guess I'll finish it real quick. Try to keep my ends not caught up in it if I can. There you go. Hoping to have this done in time for Easter. We shall see. Not exactly sure when Easter is off the top of my head. Outside of generically coming up this way. Okay, I think we're pretty good. So now I'm going to tie it to this end here. Make sure I don't lose any tension in the tying. All right, so I want to make sure that doesn't come off. And there, I finally have a fully dressed loom. So the next step, now that my loom is dressed, I'm going to release the tension because I'm not going to weave tonight, and you don't want to leave your yarn on the loom under that much tension. It's not good for your yarn. So I've released my break, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure back here, yeah, it's nice and relaxed. So that's good. The next thing that I need to do is I need to get my yarn here onto a stick shuttle. And I think we're going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, so you can wind your yarn onto your stick shuttle a lot of ways. I am going to use an umbrella swift, and I'm actually going to use this ball winder and wind it into a cake, and then I will hand wind it onto my stick shuttle. Now, I could technically just go straight from the swift onto the stick shuttle, but I just personally don't like doing that. I feel like I risk getting my yarn tangled, and I just don't like to do it that way. I would rather go to a cake and then to the stick shuttle. So that's what I'm going to do. Plus, I am so very fortunate as to have access to the world's best ball winder. Love this ball winder, which makes it very easy. So we're going to use what we have. Let's see here. Make sure my yarn is going to come off as nicely as possible. Oop, I need to turn it the other way. It's beautiful hand-dyed yarn by Hot Springs Fiber Company. Beautiful. And I'll bring it over here. And I will wind it into a beautiful hank, courtesy of Rose Path Weaving. there we have a perfect and beautiful cake of yarn, which is wonderful to knit or crochet off of, but also much easier to wind my stick shuttle off of. All right, so I'm going to take this and my stick shuttle, and I'm going to sit at my loom, and we're going to wind the weft, all those W's, onto the stick shuttle, and then we will be all set up for the next episode when we will finally start the actual weaving. All right, it's been a very productive evening. So what we are going to do is we are going to wind that cake that I just wound with the electric ball winder onto a stick shuttle in this kind of crisscross format. So there's a few different ways to wind a stick shuttle. I've done it several. This is my favorite because I can get the most yarn on the stick shuttle. I can probably get, I don't know if I can get all of it, but I can get most of it onto one stick shuttle. So I have longer ones, but I don't have them with me. They're currently in use in Mineola, like I said at the beginning. This is the longest one I have that's naked, so we're gonna go with that. I have 3 here, and I have 3 in Mineola. So my shorter ones are the ones I have here. So it's not hard. And me being the OCD person that I am, I like to wind it in sets of like 25 or 50. So I usually count as I go, but this is 1, 1. So that's 1 full wind. And I go, I don't know if you guys can see best, but I go front, front, so it crisscrosses. So I'm always crossing into the front. So that's 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6. And I just keep counting in my head till it looks kind of full. Oops. And if I lose count, it's not that big a deal. I just like to try to wind it kind of even. So that's about 50. So now I'm going to turn it and continue loading the other side. So that's about 50 on this side. And I'll just keep loading back and forth each side over and over again until either I'm out of room on the stick shuttle or out of yarn, which I probably will run out of room on my stick shuttle before I run out of yarn. All right, so that's about as full as I usually load a stick shuttle. So that's about half of my ball. So I'll have to cut it and weave with this, and then I'll have to reload the other half of my ball. I could try to squeeze all this on this stick, but I think it would get difficult to work with. So I'm gonna call that good. I have other options. I do have boat shuttles. Pardon me. So I have several, but I haven't used any of them yet. And the reason is because so far, all of my weaving projects have been with DK weight yarn or even worsted weight yarn. And a bobbin for this shuttle, I have two different kinds. I have this kind and this kind, but the bobbins are just not very big and they don't hold anywhere near as much yarn as my stick shuttles do with this thicker yarn. So far, I have not really used a boat shuttle. I do have a friend with a bigger boat shuttle with a bigger bobbin, and I did try using that with my DK weight yarn, but it's still, I can put so much more yarn on a stick shuttle than I can these boat shuttles, and I don't like having to weave in ends anymore in weaving than I liked doing it in knitting or crochet. So the fewer times I have to cut and reload my yarn, the better. So I will continue to use stick shuttles for now, but hopefully I will graduate to finer projects with finer yarns, and then I can try out some of these beautiful boat shuttles that I have. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me for Weaving with Bee. I appreciate you spending some time with me. My loom is fully dressed. My stick shuttle is fully loaded, and so I will be ready to weave when next we meet. Sorry, I bopped my microphone. So that's exciting. Now, I think this is like, I'm not sure off the top of my head if this is like the 5th or 6th part of this series. So you can see that weaving requires a lot of prep work before you ever start doing actual weaving. Now, some of that time commitment is going to depend on what kind of loom you have and how much warp you're threading. This was a fairly small warp. Imagine if I had needed to do, a 300 ends on, a big, huge project. It would take a lot longer. So it's just part of the process. It's not my favorite part. My favorite part is the weaving, but the weaving is really probably the shortest amount of time that I spend on any given project. All of this prep work that I've been doing probably takes longer than the actual weaving. But it's all fun, it's all enjoyable, and it will be interesting to see how I improve with time. Because like I said, I think this is only my 6th project or so, 6th time to dress a loom. So yeah, if you have ideas or comments or suggestions or stories about your own experience with weaving, I'd sure love to hear from you in the comment section down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.